You grew up in a time that didn't ask how you felt. It asked what you could endure. The world around you was louder than your inner life, but no one noticed that part. You learned early that feelings were something you handled privately, if at all. You didn't have language for emotional needs, only instincts for restraint. You watched adults carry their pain like a badge of honor, and you absorbed the lesson without being taught. Survive quietly, complain never, keep moving. You remember rooms filled with smoke, radios murmuring in the background, television voices replacing conversations. Adults were present but distant. Love was implied, not spoken. Care was practical, not tender. Food on the table mattered more than feelings in the chest. And you adapted, because adaptation was the unspoken rule. You learned independence before you learned safety. You learned responsibility before reassurance. You learned how to be alone while surrounded by people. There was no constant checking in, no asking what was wrong. If something hurt, you swallowed it. If you were confused, you figured it out. If you were scared, you hid it. You didn't call it strength back then. It was just how life worked. And now, decades later, you still carry that posture. You don't talk about your struggles easily. When you do, it feels awkward, like speaking a language you were never trained to use. You're reliable, grounded, composed. People lean on you without asking how much weight you're already carrying, and you rarely stop them. There's a quiet loneliness in that. You're not dramatic. You don't fall apart publicly. You don't expect to be rescued. Even now, when life is heavy, your instinct is to handle it alone, to push through, to stay functional, to keep your dignity intact. You were raised in a culture where emotions were considered indulgent, weakness was quietly shamed, and resilience was the only acceptable response to pain. You didn't learn emotional literacy. You learned emotional containment. So you became good at it, too good. You can stay calm in chaos. You can keep going when others freeze. You can tolerate discomfort longer than most. But what no one sees is the cost. The way tension lives permanently in your body. The way your jaw tightens without you noticing. The way rest feels unfamiliar, almost unsafe. You don't collapse when things go wrong. You harden. That hardness kept you alive, but it also kept you distant. Relationships have always been complicated. You value loyalty, consistency, and effort. You don't trust words easily. You watch what people do. You're slow to open, slower to depend. Vulnerability feels exposed, like standing without armor. Even with people you love, there's a part of you that stays guarded, alert, self-contained. You don't need constant reassurance, but you also don't ask for it. And when you're with someone who wants emotional transparency, it can feel overwhelming. Not because you don't care, but because you were never shown how to sit inside emotions without managing them. You were taught to solve problems, not explore feelings. So you listen, you offer solutions, you stay composed, and sometimes the other person feels unseen. That hurts, even if you don't say it. There's a grief you don't name often. A grief for the softness you never had space to develop. For the version of you that learned to grow up early and never quite came back. You don't resent your past. You respect it. But somewhere inside, there's a quiet wondering about what might have been different if someone had slowed down long enough to ask how you were really doing. You don't dramatize this thought. You don't dwell on it. You move on. That's your pattern. You were shaped by a decade that believed stability mattered more than sensitivity, endurance more than expression. a time when children were expected to be resilient, adaptable, and self-sufficient. And you were. You are. But self-sufficiency, when learned too early, becomes isolation dressed as strength. You don't feel broken. You feel contained. Like everything important is sealed inside, functional but untouched. You rarely feel overwhelmed, but you also rarely feel fully met. There's a sense that something is missing, though you'd struggle to describe what it is. It's not excitement, it's not happiness, it's ease. You don't rest easily. Even in stillness, part of you stays alert. Old habits, old wiring, the sense that something might go wrong and you should be ready. You've spent a lifetime being the one who holds things together. Letting go doesn't feel natural. It feels irresponsible. You learned that adulthood meant control. That composure was respectability. That needing too much was dangerous. So you learn to need less, and people admire you for it. They call you strong, dependable, grounded. They don't see the quiet fatigue that comes from never having had a place to fall apart. They don't see how hard it is for you to ask for help, even when you deserve it, especially when you deserve it. There's a tenderness under your restraint that surprises people when it surfaces. A depth of care, loyalty, and commitment that runs deeper than words. When you love, you show it through presence, consistency, and sacrifice. Not through grand gestures, but through staying. You stay, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when no one notices. That's how you were built. But there's also a part of you that wonders what it would feel like to be met without effort, to be understood without explanation, to be allowed to soften without losing respect. You don't chase that feeling. You don't articulate it, but it's there, quiet, persistent, waiting. You grew up in the 1970 seconds, but that decade didn't stay in the past. It shaped your nervous system, your posture in the world, the way you carry responsibility like a second spine. It taught you to survive without complaint, to value practicality over vulnerability, to keep moving forward no matter what you carried with you. And you did. You still do. But sometimes, late at night, when the noise of the world fades, there's a moment where you feel the weight of all the things you never said, never asked for, never allowed yourself to need. You don't judge it. You don't panic. You just sit with it. That moment matters more than you think, because it's the part of you that was never given time, the part that learned strength before safety, the part that's still here, still steady, still waiting, not to be fixed, not to be rescued, just to be seen. And here's the quiet truth I want to leave you with. Nothing about you is wrong. The way you carry yourself, the way you endure, the way you stay steady when others unravel. That didn't come from emptiness. It came from adaptation, from learning how to survive in a world that didn't pause. You were shaped by a time that asked a lot of you early, and you answered. There is still room, though. Room for softness without weakness. Room for rest without guilt. Room for being held without losing who you are. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to unlearn your strength. You only need to let yourself be human inside it. And even now, after everything, that possibility is still alive in you.